Hi, everybody. Welcome to Lunch for the Soul. I am Melissa Wilson in our Fox 26 newsroom in Houston, Texas. Happy to welcome you here today. I tell you what, I have an amazing young lady to welcome you to today. You are going to fall in love with her because she has an unbelievable testimony to share of just resilience, of how to not only take your illness to the next level, but how to do it with style and grace and a good attitude. And I really feel like we can all learn from her. So let's bring in Emily Campbell. Hi, Emily. I'm so happy to see
Hi.
you.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Melissa, for having me. And
Well,
you're too kind. That was such a nice introduction. Thank you.
you have an incredible testimony to share, and I want to say I'm proud of you for
Thank you.
for for making such a big difference now and really trying to pave the way for future patients. That's very valiant, and it's a really beautiful thing to do.
Thank
So
you.
you have gone from being patient to advocate. So I
Yes, I
want to walk everybody through your journey and talk about what happened because you were only in your early 30s when you got a shocking diagnosis. Tell us what you were diagnosed with, and then we'll go back and talk about any warning signs and how you got that diagnosis.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share my story. And thank you again for the platform to be able to do so.
Mhm.
So I was diagnosed with borderline ovarian cancer with pretty extensive micropapillary invasion at the age of 33. And I'll go into what all that is in a minute. But I was in the prime of my life. I was in my early 30s. I had just recently been married to my wonderful, amazing husband, Chris. And we had just moved to Miami. We had bought a home together. And we're really looking forward to the future of hopefully building a family together and seeing where the years take us. And I remember sitting in the doctor's office after weeks of feeling symptoms, but being dismissed and being misdiagnosed a few times and not having any understanding or direction on what I was feeling and where I should be, looking toward, like which doctors, which specialists. And I remember sitting in the doctor's room and they sat both Chris and I down because I had just been to the ER and she says, "This looks like you have cancer." And she then goes, "But let's rule it out." And she walked away. And I remember like looking over to my husband Chris and I go, "Okay, let's rule this out.
Yeah,
We'll rule
let's
it
rule
out."
it out now and make sure that that's not what it
Yeah.
is.
And it turned out to be, unfortunately, she was right. It was.
That is such a big diagnosis at that age, at that stage in your life. And this particular cancer typically does happen to younger women, right?
It does, it does. So the stats of ovarian cancer in general are pretty sobering. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
it's the deadliest gynecologic cancer for women. It's the 5th leading cause of deaths for cancer-related deaths for women. Ovarian cancer in general is often referred to as the silent killer, which is a terrible nickname, but unfortunately really true because until it's at its very advanced stages, symptoms don't really show up for many women. And when they do, they're very vague. And that's kind of why I had a hard time even getting that initial diagnosis. I had mentioned earlier, it taken me weeks. They're super they can go for any illness essentially, bloating, feeling a little bit distension in the abdomen, feeling really full quickly after you eat, having to urinate, constipation, any number of symptoms that I'm sure we've all felt as women before,
Mhm.
right? At some
Mhm.
point in our life. And so when you do start to feel these symptoms, unfortunately, it's usually at advanced stages. And this is why it's so hard to detect early. It's really difficult to treat. So the average age for ovarian cancer diagnosis is 65.
Mm.
But the two types that really affect and strike younger women, one of them which I was diagnosed with, and another one which is called low-grade serous ovarian cancer, they're pretty related. They're not essentially the same, but they kind of have very similar characteristics, the tumor types.
Mhm.
That average age of diagnosis is 45. So it's essentially an entire 2 decades earlier, for this diagnosis for these 2 types of cancer, which is unfortunately, pretty rare.
And I see you here and I see that look in your eyes and it literally shreds my heart. So at what point was this picture taken?
I had taken myself to the ER. So what happened, I started to feel symptoms in December of 2022. So I was diagnosed in January of 23. And again, they were super vague. I was constipated. I felt very like bloated all the time. I could barely eat. I lost a lot of weight, but I didn't realize it because again, I was getting bloated and bloated because
Mhm.
I couldn't eat. I felt overly full every time I even took a bite of food, and I'd been to a few doctors over the course of these 2 weeks, and every time I went to an urgent care or, made an appointment with a doctor, they said, "Oh, it's probably just constipation," or, "Maybe it's hormonal," or, one of them told me I had a gluten allergy, which at the time, I think was more devastating than hearing the ovarian cancer diagnosis because I was like, "What? I like gluten." So, but again, of course, all these are wrong, right? This was not the case. It was not hormonal for me, it was not a gluten allergy, it was not constipation, it was cancer. And unfortunately, I ended up having to take myself to the ER because I got so uncomfortable with the bloating and the abdominal distension. I looked 6 months pregnant. I got to the ER, and the first thing they asked me was, "Have you taken a pregnancy test?" And I had to, like, tell them, "Yes," because every doctor I've been to so far has also asked me to do so, and I'd say, "Yes, I have. I know I'm not." But again, they made me do another one because, again, I looked very pregnant at the time. I was very uncomfortable,
Good
and
for
that's what
you
caused
to
the
be an advocate for your own health when
Yes.
everybody's telling you, "Oh, you're fine," or "It's this," or "It's
Yeah,
that," and it wasn't, and you just
yeah,
kept looking for those answers, and I feel like so many times that's what we have to do because, again, so many different types of illness mimic others. So
yes,
let's go on and talk about what happened. So you had to have major surgery. Again, you were in your childbearing years, you had the future to look forward to,
yes.
thinking you were going to have children. Tell us about your surgeries because those were biggies.
Yeah, and the surgery was also pretty unexpected, going into the ER and then being told it was cancer that night, and I was admitted to the hospital on a Wednesday evening, and I had the surgery the following Tuesday morning. So I was in the hospital for about 6 days beforehand, and leading up to the surgery, again, the doctors with ovarian cancer, it's very difficult to treat and detect early because there's no way of actually biopsying the tissue without doing a surgical biopsy. So you have to have surgery in order to get that tissue, in
Mhm,
order to get, like, true diagnosis.
mhm,
And they weren't sure how extensive it was gonna be. They could see I had ran some additional tests, some MRIs and CT scans, and they could see masses. They knew that there was a mass. There's 2 significant masses in my pelvic region, but they didn't understand how extensive those were until they had to go ahead and go in physically to my body and look. And I had to sign a waiver before the surgery, essentially saying take as much as you need to out of the tumor, but if more needs to be taken out, like organ-wise, then I have to let them know that, yes, that can happen. And so I went into the surgery not knowing if they were just gonna take out the tumors and be done, or if I was gonna lose all my reproductive organs, or what was gonna happen in between.
mhm.
And so I remember waking up from the surgery, and unfortunately, I asked my husband, I said, "Did they take everything?" And he said, "They took everything." And so a radical hysterectomy is essentially, the entire uterus and a little bit of the cervix. A bilateral oophorectomy is each ovary. So an oophorectomy is the ovary. And there's like a fatty tissue that protects and covers the reproductive organs. Every woman has it. That's called the omentum. They had to take that out as well. So it's essentially total hysterectomy. So I had lost the uterus, the cervix, the fallopian tubes, and both ovaries in that
Mm.
90-minute operation.
And I see you here, and this it looks like it's probably not long after your surgery.
Yeah.
And look at you, you just have your bandages on and you're smiling. How did you do that? How did you go through that loss that quickly? Obviously, you're still healing and you're still obviously doing everything you can to have a good attitude about it.
The attitude was everything for me. I remember being in the hospital and having conversations with my husband and, you know, we're very similar, character-wise, like, we're problem solvers. We anything that gets thrown our way, we pride ourselves in being able to, like, solve that problem, and we do so with a positive attitude, and I don't wanna say, like, toxic positivity because that's something completely different. I'm saying, like, obviously, you have to accept what's happening, and you have
Mhm,
to, feel those emotions, but
mhm,
I knew that there was nothing at that point that I could do to go back in time.
Mhm.
I could ask, why, I could ask 1,000,000,000 questions, right? But the only thing that I knew that I could do, that I could control, is just continue moving forward with the best information that I had at the time and just make that best decision for myself and for my family. And so I knew that at every single day when I'd wake up, I'd have to just, like, forward. That's all I can do. I can just get better one day at a time, and I was so happy in that photo because that was the day that I actually got home. I, the surgery was it's really miraculous when you think about, it was laparoscopically done, so that's with
Mhm.
essentially a robot. So it was just
Mhm.
5 little incisions across the abdomen, much different than the traditional surgery where,
Mhm.
it's a really large incision down the center of the abdomen. So this is, the surgery, that many women are going toward. It's still not the go-to type, but I was really lucky. I had one of the top gynecologic oncologist surgeons, in South Florida, in the US, essentially, and he, did it robotically. So I was lucky enough to have an easier time with recovery. Easier is obviously, relative because it took months. It was months of recovery,
Well,
physical
you
therapy and everything. So yeah.
like you said, you went through it, you tried to have a good attitude, you allowed yourself to have those tough emotions, which is really good. It's so important in that. But then you decided this isn't just about me, it's for paving the road for women to come. So that's where you and your husband Chris come in to coming up with a foundation. First of all, let's introduce your honey. I know you sent me a picture. Here you go,
There he
everybody.
is, yay!
Oh, there's the
And
loving
his hilarious
honey.
t-shirt that he
Uh,
surprised me with.
I love that. Look at that. Oh, that is great. All I got is this lousy t-shirt. I love
Yeah,
that. Okay, so there he is. He obviously has a really good sense of humor. So tell me about your foundation and how you came up with the idea. And I love the name, by the way. So tell
thank
everybody
you,
about that.
thank you. We had a really great time coming up with the brand and the name as well. Throughout this process, through diagnosis and surgery, and we essentially, also received second and third opinions, and it was over the span of, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks. And we realized that there's a dearth of information, both for patients and also for physicians. The amount of times that myself or Chris would hear the words, "Oh, this is extremely rare," or "This is really unusual," or "We don't really see this too often," was more than two handfuls, right? And across a multitude of physicians and doctors' visits, and we knew right then and there that no young woman deserves to hear that, no matter the situation. If they're going to face a life-threatening and life-changing illness like ovarian cancer, especially LGSOC, which is low-grade serous ovarian cancer, or borderline ovarian cancer, um, also known as borderline ovarian tumors, BOT, that they deserve information. They deserve to, find the doctors that are specialized, highly specialized in this care. Unfortunately, there's not that many, but we wanted to be able to connect those patients with the resources that they need to not only survive, but also thrive.
How did you come up with not these ovaries?
It was one of those moments where, we wanted something catchy. These 2 cancers affect young women, and so we wanted to create a brand that, there's some really amazing ovarian cancer charities out there, and we're not trying to, like, compete with them in any way, but we wanted to provide a resource for younger women. And we knew that, or I knew when I was, fiercely researching, my own diagnosis in the very beginning, I didn't find that there was a voice or a resource that spoke
Mhm.
to young women, to me. And we wanted something catchy. We wanted the feeling of, like, if an older sister or an older friend had went through the same thing, and they could tell it like it is, but they could
Mhm.
be gentle about it. So they could give you everything they need to know. They can give you the hard answers, but they could also tell you, like, this is the hard answer, but this is how you're going to get through it.
Yeah.
And we just thought "not these ovaries" was a funny thing to say, like, "Not these ovaries, not ever again." I mean, it's gonna be my ovaries, but it's not gonna be anyone else's ovaries. It's never gonna happen, hopefully, ever again after we've, cured cured this cancer, so
And it is truly under-researched, it's underfunded, right? So you're working on that. Let's talk about your partnership and what you were able to do, which you showed the picture right here. This had to
Yeah.
be a really big deal for you. So we're talking about one of the biggest cancer institutes in the country. Tell me
Yeah.
about this moment and how this came about.
Yeah. So Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, one of the top research hospitals in the US, partnered with like Harvard University. So really amazing research institutions. We I essentially went to Dana-Farber to get a second opinion and met with an oncologist there that was it was such a lovely experience. The entire experience of visiting Dana-Farber was really it really put our minds at ease when we were going through this really terrible, scary time, and we knew we wanted to partner with them. And we learned, talking to this doctor and, learning more about what their work is, and especially in the ovarian cancer space, because they do all gyno, cancers, that there's a need, right? There's a need, but there's no money. And unfortunately, because it's such a rare cancer, there's a need, but they also don't have enough samples. They don't have enough, like, you need to look at a tumor,
Mhm,
right? You need to look at specific cancer cells in order to see how they grow, how they mutate, how they react to different treatments. And so, knowing this information and knowing that they wanted to do something about it, but they just needed that extra funding, and with that funding, they could then expand their
mhm.
research projects. We wanted to partner with them initially. That was our first project through Not These Ovaries. We essentially raised $1.8 million. So we collected, with a handful of really amazing donors. We're very thankful and grateful for them, and that was our first project. I think it's the largest research project funded that is specific toward, borderline ovarian tumors and low-grade serous ovarian cancer. So,
And it's needed, and you did that, and, you never know where that's going to end up going, right? What is the survival rate for BOT?
survival rate is pretty, luckily really high, if you catch it and you're able to remove all of it. Unfortunately, the
Mhm,
recurrence rate is also very high. And the tricky thing about BOT and LGSOC, which again are these two, subtypes, there are no FDA approved treatments at all. Chemotherapy is right now used. I did not go through chemotherapy, but it only has like a less than 20% success rate. So these young women
mhm,
are going through chemo kind of knowing it's not going to work,
mm,
and right now, also knowing that recurrence is really high. For many women, their recurrence rate can be up to 70 to 80% that they'll
mm,
see this again. And it's just surgery and kind of maintaining and, like, surgery, and that's not enough.
yeah.
That's not enough. And so we need to
How
follow drug treatment.
I'm I'm wondering how you deal with that and those thoughts of recurrence. How do you keep your mind clear, your body healthy so that you don't think about that and you just live life?
That's a great question. Uh, my husband and I call it the year of yes. We're in the year of yes,
Nice.
because it was, early last year when I was diagnosed and went through the surgery, and unfortunately, like, went through months of recovery. And at this point, we're just saying, like, whatever comes our way, we're gonna say yes to it. We're just gonna enjoy life as it is. We know how fast life can fly by. We know how precious
Mhm,
it is.
mhm,
Um, Unfortunately, like, in the very beginning, I was told a different prognosis than what I do have now. I was,
mhm,
told that I was only gonna have a 50% chance to live. And again, this doctor didn't have all the information, but that was what I was told. And
mhm,
e even if it's not true, which it is not, and
mhm,
I'm grateful for that, I still heard it. I still experienced that. When you sit down and you hear that and you're
mhm.
told that at this age, um, it kind of it changes how you look at life.
Yeah.
It gives you an opportunity to say, like, "I can do something now with this information. Like, this was terrible for us.
Mhm,
This will always be terrible for any woman that goes through this, but if I can take what we went through and
mhm.
create something positive out of it, then that's exactly how it should have happened."
It's huge. Now I understand you're taking this even a step further. You're developing a doctor directory
Yes.
to make sure that others can find the help they need because, like you said, it's so rare that doctors may not be able to help somebody if they don't know about it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, even when you look at ovarian cancer or all gyno cancers in general, I think the stat is like 60% of women in the US do not have a gynecologist in their county. A gynecologic oncologist, I should say, in their county. 2 states alone have 0. So people who are living in these states, young women who are living in the states, if they are feeling these symptoms, they don't they're going to a primary doctor and they might not have any information and they might not be able to
Mhm,
have the resources to find a gynecologic
mhm,
oncologist.
mhm,
And so our doctor directory is hopefully going to solve that problem. It's going to have all of the gyno oncologists in the U.S. There's about 1,500 of them, and of course they're more concentrated in larger metro areas,
yeah,
but
yeah,
they are there, and it's going to have also like a list of the insurance providers,
mhm.
reviews, the different like locations that
All the
that
info,
they
it's huge.
that of. Yeah.
Well, we're running out of time, so I just wanna talk quickly about you even got restaurants on board to help you. I love that
Yes.
you have all of these people who are backing you, they're all into this, they're all trying to make a difference. How meaningful is that, and what difference do you think it will make?
Oh man, I hope a huge difference. And this is a restaurant here in Miami. They're key restaurants. They're all over the US. There's one in Vegas, there's one in New
Mhm,
York as well. And this is also for awareness.
mhm,
I think the stat is 90% of women who are diagnosed with this cancer have never even heard of it
mhm,
before.
mhm,
I would argue that it's probably higher, 99% maybe. And offering the chance to just put this out for women to, like, understand and
Yeah,
to know, like, "Oh, if I'm feeling these symptoms," and also just to advocate them for
mhm,
themselves,
mhm,
whether or not it's ovarian cancer, whether or not it's any kind of cancer, just to know that you know your own body. The
right.
healthcare system is confusing, and it can be really intimidating, but to just continue to advocate for yourself is the most important part.
And it's so important for people to realize that if they want to help you, if other businesses wanna get on board, that it all goes toward this research
Yes,
to find a cure, so nobody ever has to be given a
yes.
50% chance or less to live, right? So talk about where we can find you and how we can help.
Yes, go to nottheseovaries.org. We are completely 100% donation, dollar for dollar, going directly toward research. So every single time you donate $100, that $100 is going towards research. We're covering personally the credit card transaction fees. We're covering our salaries. So this is all volunteer run. Every single dollar that you can donate towards Not These Ovaries is going to go directly toward research.
Well, you are absolutely making a big difference. I'm so
Thank
happy to
you.
be able to talk to you. I hope people will go there, they will check it out, they
I
will
hope so
learn
too.
more, they'll see what you're doing. And Emily, just only good help to you from now
Thank
on.
you. I
Let us
appreciate it.
know through your journey if we can help you here at Lunch for the Soul and get even more word out, anything we can do to help because you're an amazing
Thank
young
you.
lady and
Thank you.
I'm just so amazed at all you're doing. Keep up the good work.
I appreciate Melissa. Thank you.
You're absolutely making a difference. All right. And I want to thank you all for being here today. And just remind you, if you joined us late, perhaps, hey, you can join us every single week. Wednesdays and Sundays is the place to be. I'm going to pull up right here all the info you need to know. So you can go to our Fox 26 YouTube. You can go to our webpage, fox26houston.com, or you can go to our Fox local app to find all the different episodes. If you want to reach out to me, you can find my email. It's melissa.wilson@fox.com. I'm always happy to be able to talk to you, maybe put you on here and be able to share your testimony. Thank you for being here. Be blessed, and I'll see you back here next time.